And we're live. Woohoo!
Oh, hello, Mark.
Whoa. I loved all the familiar faces on your intro.
Yeah, it's like the rogues gallery of
Yes.
mainly social media marketing world people.
Yes,
Got a little
a
bit
lot
of a
of them.
bias. Occasionally we have people Christelle knows. It's ironic Christelle is actually from San Diego, but she's never been to social media marketing world.
No, I met Tim having coffee outside of social media marketing world, but
I don't think she's got a restraining order, but that could be, you don't know.
that is not true. Mark, it's so nice to meet you. Tim speaks so highly of you. And we know that, one, you live on the East Coast.
Yeah.
You're a professor at Rutgers University.
Mm-hmm.
And you are a well-known speaker, but we want to hear more about your book because it's very fascinating to me. Can I even pronounce it? Cumulative.
Yeah. It doesn't quite roll off the tongue. And it features the Mandalorian.
Is that the Beskar Mando one at the end of the series?
Mando.
Is that the one at the beginning of the series?
I wanted to call it Mando Advantage, but the Disney people got in touch with me and they said, no, that's not a good idea. Then I was going to call it like My Life with the Child. And they said, no, that's not a good idea either. So, so Cumulative Advantage was my third choice for the book title.
That's amazing. Will you tell us quickly what the principle is?
It's about this rogue guy in outer space who finds this little baby Yoda.
Right, Grogu. Oh no!
And everyone should read it to see what happens next.
I can do better. I've got a video that Mark has produced that explains his book that I could play.
Oh, right.
Let's hear it. Yes.
Can you actually play that?
Yes. I'm a technological.
Look at technology is amazing. We can play a video. Today, there's really only one priority for anyone who wants to build a business, launch a career, or just get an idea out into the world. You must be found. You must be heard. But as the amount of information explodes all around us, standing out seems impossible. In this era of infinite media, how will you be heard? Content isn't enough. Social media isn't enough. SEO isn't enough. Even being smart and hardworking and passionate are not enough. Does it seem like the odds are hopelessly stacked against you? Do you have to be rich, connected, and lucky to make a dent in this world? The answer is no. Cumulative Advantage takes you through the 5 factors that you can apply to your ideas, business, and life today. Finding an initial advantage, applying it to a seam of opportunity, a sonic boom of awareness, strategic mentoring, and constancy of purpose. Cumulative Advantage, the essential book for anyone with a dream ready to take flight. I swear that makes me want to buy the book.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like with the old children at school thing where they say teachers, when they're hungover, they just play a video for 30 minutes for the thing. What you should do in your book tours is you should just have like little video clips where you could just play, and then we could just, because the whole thing about it is your spark advantage could be that you've already rehearsed the things you're going to say, and you just like click, press button.
Yeah, because that's usually the way I start every speech anyway. Ladies and gentlemen, I am hungover. I'm going to play videos for you instead. Tim has seen me speak several times, so he sort of knows my shtick.
He knows the style.
No, I mean,
my style. If I'm not actually hungover, I look like I'm hungover.
Well, unfortunately, I haven't got any other videos to play, so we're going to have to talk about the book. I have got some graphics I've created, ripped off from your book and your website, with your permission.
Okay. Yeah.
So this is one of the fundamental things, that it all comes down to an initial advantage. Now, could you talk a little bit about what the initial advantage is and how that's important to people?
Yeah. So, I mean, let's take a step back and talk about what is this swooshy thing and why I wrote the book. And as the video said, is, boy, you know, even if you're great, you might be you're just being buried today.
Yeah.
And I realized even about myself and my clients and my students that we're doing great work. There's this mythology in content marketing that kind of makes me angry. You hear it over and over again. It says, well, the problem isn't that there's too much content or too much competition. There's too much bad content. What are you smoking, dude? Look, there's great content out there.
Yeah.
People are doing great work. Look, the fellow who was the #1 YouTuber last year, a guy named Jimmy Nicholson, he goes by Mr. Beast. He earned tens of millions of dollars on YouTube. He spends, on average, $300,000 to make one video. He has spent $1 million making one video. Now, look, that's what competition is like today, right?
Yeah.
And so being great is not enough. And if you look at the trajectory of my career, what I've been trying to figure out is, how do we stand out in this world? And I think where we need to be today is that, you know, being great is not enough. How do we get to that next level if we're stuck? And I think the answer, at least in part, is momentum. So that's what this swooshy thing is about, is that I started going down this deep, dark rabbit hole to figure out, how do you build momentum? And I came across this research that started in the 1960s that was originally called the Matthew Effect. Later it became Cumulative Advantage, as we see how this pattern has been applied to almost every industry, athletics and entertainment and technology and business. But it's never really been broken down and applied to us, our lives, our ideas, and our careers. And so that's what I wanted to do in this book, is make this a practical pattern. So all momentum starts with this initial advantage. Now, it doesn't have to be money. It doesn't have to be a Harvard education. In fact, it usually isn't. It's almost always something random. So if you think about, how did Bill Gates become Bill Gates? He wasn't rich. He didn't have a special education. But when he was a teenager, he had access to some of the earliest computer prototypes. He was coding before anybody else. He played his cards right. Advantage builds on advantage. And he created this unstoppable momentum. I can directly create a line between a conversation I had with my boss in 1992 and why I'm here with you today. In 1992, I was in the marketing job. I was stuck. I didn't know where I was going to go next in my career. And I saw this thing happening called the internet. And I went to my boss. I said, I would like to be on the internet. I would like an AOL account, $9 a month, and I want to put it on my expense account. After much debate, he thought it was a waste of money. He said, okay. I had ideas of how we could apply our business to this thing called the World Wide Web. I was curious. I pursued my curiosity. I got this account. I created ideas that worked. A few years later, my company wakes up and says, we need to create a global e-business department. Who shall lead this thing? Oh, Mark, you've been on the internet longer than anybody else. How about you? And so that really launched this whole career of me being a digital marketing strategist, consultant, writer. Started my own business in 2008. And that's why I'm here. It really started with that conversation. If my boss would have pushed me into something else, I wouldn't be here with you today. So I had an idea. It was a spark. I followed my curiosity. There was an opening. There was a seam of opportunity, right? The timing is right. I burst through that seam. I didn't stop. Even when people thought I was stupid, they didn't understand. I burst through the seam and created this momentum, and that has led me to where I am today.
So, you talk quite a lot. I listened to your audiobook at 2 times speed yesterday, and being at 2 times speed, I missed about half of it because I was crossing
Chipmunk speed. I was on chipmunk speed.
Chipmunk. Actually, it was funny, actually. I've worked out how to play them on my normal Sonos sound system, but it only plays at normal speed. And I was going to play it again on that, but you just sounded so spaced out compared to the that I was used to listen to. But you kind of make the point that these opportunities, most of the time, they're not anything that people have reached out for. They're just things that happen.
Right.
Is there anything you can do in terms of identifying what the opportunities are when they happen, and also how is there anything you can do to make sure you have more opportunities? I mean, we're starting right at the beginning rather than we'll talk about the mining the seam in a minute. But how do those opportunities work, and how can you improve your chances of getting more opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. You know, I was reading a story today in the New York Times about a restaurant in California that when the pandemic hit, the restaurant owner thought to himself, we have just served our last meal.
Yeah.
There's no way we're going to survive this. Now, here's what the beginning of momentum looks like. You think about there's a shift. There's a fracture in the status quo. And how do I apply my advantage, something I'm good at, or some idea I have to that shift? All right. So here's what the restaurant owner did. He said, oh, well, we're dead. Then he looked around his restaurant and he realized that there was this sort of extra street lane in front of his restaurant. There are no cars going around. So he goes to the city government. He said, can I block this off and create an outdoor seating area? They said, yes, absolutely. Boom. Then he cut out a window in the wall of his restaurant so he could hand people food. Boom. Then his business is coming back. He figures out how we can deliver food to people who can't get out of their apartments. Boom. Then the business next to him fails, and the landlord is desperate. He said, how much can I get this for? Almost nothing. He expands his space. He expands his business in the pandemic. He said, people love our hot sauces and our barbecue sauces. He uses this space. He starts bottling up sauces. And every time he hands this meal out the window, he said, you want a bottle of our sauce? They said, yeah. Now he's selling more. He has new space. He has a new product. His business is booming. He had a record year because he saw the seam. He thought, what do we do best? And how do we take advantage of the fracture in the status quo? 1, no cars. Use the freaking street. 2, nobody's coming into our restaurant. Cut a hole in the darn wall. 3, I've got this amazing opportunity to buy the space next door. Do it. Expand the business. I've got someone on my team. He, we don't have enough business to make the food. He makes the sauces. Put them in a bottle.
Yeah.
We'll sell the sauces, right? Boom, boom, boom. Now, that's creating momentum. It's because he saw a shift, a fracture in the status quo. And look, let's not diminish the fact that we're living in a very hard time. And many businesses are failing, and it's a horrific time and a time of sadness and grief for many people. But I predicted last March when the pandemic.
Ooh, is he frozen for you, Christian?
Yeah, we're.
All right, I blipped out for a minute. Am I okay?
Yeah, you're back.
Yes.
So,
Okay.
Thank God for that.
I don't know. Yeah, there was just a little blip, right?
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
It wasn't 5 years. It was just 5 seconds.
Yeah. So here we are, and my predictions come true. We've had a lot of business failures, but we've actually had more startups than failures. Now, how did I apply this in my own life? Look, early on, I had COVID. My wife had COVID. We were locked in. I had it bad. I had hypoxia. I wasn't getting enough oxygen to my brain. I couldn't think. I couldn't read. I couldn't write. I couldn't work. After about 3 or 4 weeks, I woke up out of this haze, saw my business is dead. I'm a speaker without an audience. I'm a consultant without customers. I'm a college educator without classes. My classes were canceled. My book sales dropped to 0 in 1 week. So I go through this period of disorientation. And here's the fracture in the seam. That people don't need my marketing content anymore. They need to figure out, how do we land on the other side?
Yeah.
My core competency is I'm a teacher, and I need to teach something different right now. So I completely overhauled my content. I started writing about, how do we handle this mental disorientation? How do we handle anxiety? How do we handle this chronic uncertainty that's killing us inside? I turned this into a white paper called Fight to the Other Side. I turned the white paper into a speech. By June, I had a record month. And it's because I just looked at this. At first, I was sad and depressed because I figured I was disoriented. Where do I fit in this new world? And then I had to see, okay, where is the shift? Where is the opportunity? How do I apply what I do to what people need in this moment? Just like that restaurant owner. And that's how I've been able to get through to the other side in this pandemic.
I think you speak to the majority of us listening, especially in the midst of the pandemic. Those who have had COVID, who haven't, regardless, we've been locked in. We're going through mental health issues in ways we haven't before. So to hear you speak on that is very powerful, and how you overcome that. I'm very interested in 2 of the chapters in your book. One is reaching out and reaching up, finding a mentor, and also, equally as important, reaching out and reaching down and helping disadvantaged people. Will you compare and contrast, or just kind of pinpoint the key elements in both of those ideas?
Well, what I learned is that the fastest way, really, the most effective way to sort of break through and reach this new level of momentum is to have someone help you, is to have someone who's already there, give you some advice, make an introduction, open a new opportunity, which I try to do all the time, constantly, every day. Just, create that new spark for someone. So the first idea is to really challenge the traditional idea of mentorship, which means you have a long relationship with someone who's teaching you someone new. You know what? I don't have the time to do that. I don't want to take on a new unpaid position, right? But I will help people at their moment of need, always. I never say no. Drives my wife crazy. If there's a high school kid, a college person working on a paper for their class, I help them. I say yes, because you never know what little spark will inspire somebody and send a ripple of momentum through the world in a new and positive way. And so this goes now to the second part of your question. This is also something that's very doable and accessible to all of us. I went through a really difficult internal struggle when I was writing this book, because I realized that every business book is elitist. It's written with the assumption that you have the money to buy this book, you have the time to read this book, that you have the reading skills to understand this book, that you can surround yourself with the resources and the connections to activate the ideas in this book. And it haunted me. And I just thought, this is not a book for everyone. And I just didn't want to write a book like that. We got to stop writing books like that. And what I struggled with, it literally took me 3 months to write the last chapter of the book. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, to think about, now that we know how momentum works, how do we use this pattern? How do we use this new superpower to change things? And it's very complex. It's complex. It's cosmically complex. Social justice. It's unimaginably complex. But what I suggest in this book, and I've experienced this in my own life, is that every single person hearing this today, seeing this today, has the power to connect to someone and just encourage someone, to make them feel worthy, to make an introduction, to give them an idea, to open a door. We can all do that. We probably do that every day. How do we lead with love in our lives? How do we lead with this idea that we're going to take a positive step to help somebody else? And you just never know where it's going to lead, but it does create change, especially with young people today.
I want to ask one follow-up question, then Tim, you can jump in and not let me talk.
I felt I was asking too many questions at the beginning, so feel free.
Because there's something I was really intrigued, these two chapters, and it leads into something you wrote on your blog, Creating Sparks in the World. And you actually recommend various projects that we can each be part of.
I've got a graphic.
How do we find our spark? How do we find the place to, Tim, we're on the same wavelength. You even created them, Tim.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was so impressed with this bit of the book that I thought I'd create a custom graphic for it. If you scan the QR code, or if you go to where the address at the bottom, Business Grows at Spark, Mark has listed. I was going to put them all on the slide, but I couldn't fit them all. So.
I want to hear, Mark, about creating sparks. That just makes me really excited.
Yeah.
Tell us about this.
Well, I went through a lot of just personal reflection and a lot of personal learning and growth as I was writing this book, and I got a little down about this original research that started in the 60s showed that if you have these advantages, that advantage leads to advantage. Advantage builds on advantage, and the gap will never close. And it was disheartening to see that these predictions came true in a lot of places in society where the gap in wealth, the gap in income, the gap in opportunity, they're just increasing. They're not closing, despite billions of dollars of government funding. And not just in the United States, same thing in the UK, same statistics.
Yeah.
And this is something, it's like my earliest memories as a child where, the streets were burning on the TV news when Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated. And here we are in 2021 and the streets are still burning. And it's like, I don't want this to keep happening. What can a person do? If billions and billions of dollars aren't solving the problem, what can a person do? I don't have a solution. I don't. But I have an idea. I have something that I think is accessible and something that we can do. And I've seen it work in my own life. I see it happening every day. And So we create these sparks of initiative for other people, and it changes the world. It will change the world forever. And I talked to people who are working in poverty. And I said, what gives you hope? Do you have hope? And they said, yes, we do have hope. That hope, we're not going to change this generation. We're not going to change this situation that we're in, but the children will. And if the children have hope and know that they can make these changes, the children have to know that they're valued. The children have to know that they're worthy. And we have to surround them with that confidence. There's a case study in this book about this high school in Atlanta. It was the worst high school in Atlanta, maybe the worst high school in the country. It was a blight. And there was crime, there was delinquency. It was awful. And volunteers just surrounded this school with hope and their time and created these sparks of initiative and came alongside these kids. And now it's one of the best high schools. Their graduation rate is above the national average. The percentage of kids that go to college is way above the national average. No more money, no new school, no new books. It was people volunteering their time to give children hope. Changing the world, changing the world. It's something all of us can do. And so that is the hope that's my final message in the book. And it seems to be having a very powerful impact on people. I mean, I thought it was a really good book. I was really proud of it, but you just don't know as an author till it gets out there. And I was just on a show moments before I joined your show. I was being interviewed on a podcast, and he said, I have to admit, Mark, I finished the book. I had a tear in my eye. I've never read a business book that left me with a tear in my eye. And it also left him with a determination to do something. And so that's the great, if I can just get a few people to do that, then, that's a job well done.
What I love is that you're inspiring hope, but you're also inviting each of us into a story of also creating hope in whatever world we're in, whatever sphere we're in, or reaching out, like you said. I love that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I feel like we're doing the book all in the wrong order now. That's going to be the end of the book. I've created all these slides. There is one thing I want to talk to, which is a bit earlier on in the book, which I thought was interesting, which is this Japanese concept called Ikigai, which I had to look up your slide to be able to spell. But it's this mix of when you see these opportunities, is working out which are the ones to go for. So it's basically a mix of what you love, what you're good at, what you get paid to do, and what the world needs. Can you talk a bit about that?
Well, one of the problems I had to solve with the book is the issue of timing. Timing is really important. It's arguably it's the most important thing. That you may have the greatest idea. I use this example in the book about I had this idea in my corporate days of putting wine in aluminum cans.
Yeah,
it made sense. It was logical, but the entire wine industry, gave me one big, huge cold shoulder saying, we are wine. We are in big old heavy glass bottles with stupid corks from trees. And that is the way it is. And now we have this entire generation that says, that's not what we want. We want to throw something in our backpack. And we want it to be recyclable, and we want it to chill quickly. And we don't want it, it's got to be light. We don't want it to break. And the fastest growing market for wine right now is cans. And 10% of the market is in cans. Now, my idea was a great idea, but the seam wasn't open. The timing wasn't right. There had to be a shift in the status quo. And what that is, it is a new generation. It's a new sensibility. It's a new aesthetic. It's new values. They don't value these big old heavy bottles. They value, let's pack up and go. We have a new adventure ahead of us. And so what I had to struggle with, Tim, was, is timing always random? Is it just out of our control? Is that how it's going to be a really short chapter of the book. If I say, oh, well, we've come this far, guess what? It's out of your control and it's random. So what I focused on was this idea of worthiness. Look, a lot of timing is out of our control, but there are things that are in our control. How we can evaluate our idea sort of on this model. And so if the timing is right, we will be prepared. We will know that this is an idea that we can accomplish. It fits in our lives. It's something that the world needs. It's something that the world will pay us for. It's this Japanese concept, Ikigai. And so what I did was then walk through a series of questions to help people prepare, to evaluate their idea. Is it worthy of fighting for? Most of all, is it worthy of a customer? Because I do a lot of coaching and counseling, and that's the biggest problem I see, is that entrepreneurs are so in love with an idea that they ignore customers. It's something they love, and they're blind to the idea that nobody else is really going to care about this other than you. So you can't be selfish and self-centered. You have to say, is this something that the world needs? Is this something that the world will pay for? And you've got to be really clear-headed about that and very intellectually honest about that, or you're going to waste a lot of time and money.
Yeah, it's generally most of my business for the last 5 years.
Well, how do we figure that out? Is it through research? Is it through questioning potential customers? How do we find out this answer?
Well, obviously, part of it is research. Part of it is doing a test. We're in an amazing time. If you think about, for example, when Tim was starting out in business, like I think it was probably like the 50s or something like that, and it was before the internet. And I mean, if you wanted to test something, you had to make something in your garage. You had to have equipment. You had to have financing, right? Today, most businesses, you can test on the internet. You could try it on, crowdsourcing, crowdfunding. What's that? There's that idea site. I'm dropping the name right now.
Answer the public, or answer the public?
It's not Cool Hunter, but I don't know. But you could test ideas and get support for ideas. So there's lots of ways to test it pretty quickly, pretty inexpensively. But another key thing is really being clear about your own vision, your own path. And, I don't want to have spoiler alert, but part of the fun of the book is this competition I set up between me and Tim Ferriss.
Tim Ferriss, yeah.
Yeah, Tim, and he's the most unlikely success story. And so, as I became an expert on Tim Ferriss, what he did to create his momentum just 100% aligned with the research and this pattern. And basically, I had an opportunity to create an enormous amount of momentum, and I said no. Because I would have been bored out of my mind, right?
This fantastic slide you did about your influencer marketing book that you released way too early.
I was 2 years. In fact, the last thing I wrote in the book is the first book on influencer marketing called Return on Influence. Wrote it published in 2012, which is before anybody was even using that term. And I predicted in 2 years, this will be a mainstream marketing channel. I was 100% right. But the problem was I was 2 years ahead. Now, I still could have been the most famous person for influence marketing. I could have been the father of influence marketing. I could have created the first influencer marketing agency or a pioneering agency. I would have been bored out of my mind.
Yeah.
Because I love trying something new. I wrote that book because it was so darn interesting. And there's a story about why I wrote that book and how I wrote that book, which is a story of momentum, right? It was random. It was an idea. I pursued the curiosity. There was a seam of opportunity. There was promotion that surrounded it. Blah, 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 blah. The book became a bestseller. Now, Tim had a bestseller, 4-Hour Workweek. Then he wrote The 4-Hour Chef. Then he wrote The 4-Hour Body. He created a franchise, kept it going. I moved on to something completely different because I just had no interest in it. I was at a time in my life. I didn't want to create an agency. The thought of that makes me physically ill. And so it didn't meet that Ikigai model. It's not something I wanted to do. It didn't fit my lifestyle. I didn't want to get on that treadmill. I wanted to write a new book about something else. Mm-hmm. So that idea of worthiness and fit is very important in terms of timing.
So I think we're kind of, there's so much. I was saying to Christelle in a group chat beforehand that there's just so much in this book that we could talk about. But I think we need to draw the line somewhere because it's supposed to be a half-hour show. But we've got a little.
So Christelle's talked a little bit about the impact of the two. So what was the big impact on you, Tim? What was sort of the thing that made you go, aha, haven't really thought about it that way before?
I mean, actually, the ending in a way was very good in terms of like the. And I think this is what you've discovered in that people are like, oh yeah, we've got to help other people by helping them have those initial opportunities. The sonic boom stuff was kind of stuff I knew, but I never do.
Yeah.
I suppose that's the only bit that we haven't really talked about is the whole. You can have a great idea, but if nobody knows about it, I mean, it's coming back to the old, you can have the best blog post or the best YouTube channel or the best whatever, but if nobody sees it, then it doesn't matter. Right. How do you do that sonic boom bit? I think that's the bit that you just have to keep saying it until people do it. And I always forget about it. I know that the kind of things you're supposed to do, but it's just like, how do you make something?
It's hard. And it's hard for me. Because to a large extent, it depends on other people.
Yeah.
Look, I could go out there forever. If I had $100,000 in promotional budget, I could take out ads and say, I'm Mark Schaefer, and I wrote this book, and you're gonna love it. You'll never see the world the same way again. And when you finish chapter 10, you'll have a tear in your eye, and nobody would buy the book. Or, few would buy the book because they're saying, well, this is an ad and he's an author. That's what we would expect him to say. And I never really heard of the guy before. Now, here we have you two, right? And you're on here and we've got an audience and they're hearing your message and you're saying, I like this book. This had an impact on me. It's a worthy book. It's a book that I would recommend. And so now they may not know me and they may not trust me, but they know you and they trust you. And that's how promotion works today. This connects the dots with my Marketing Rebellion book. Marketing Rebellion, the main theme of that book is we are not in control. The customer is in control. The customer is the marketer. And so today, to create vast awareness and credibility for what you're doing, you have to enable others. That message has to get out through others. And that creates the momentum. And that's how I launched my last few books. And Marketing Rebellion hit #1 on Amazon in 2 different categories. This book hit #1 in 2 different categories. And that's remarkable because I self-published these books. I don't have a big PR agency behind me. I don't have some, big publisher in New York pushing this thing. They're not getting me onto Bloomberg and CNN. It's my friends. It's people who trust me and know me. And, I've been connecting with people now for 10 or 12 years, and I blogged 650 weeks in a row. I've created podcasts for 9 years without missing. I've written 9 books. I speak around the world. I've been teaching a class at Rutgers for, 12 years. It's consistency. I didn't have something viral that made me who I am. It's just you keep on working. You do good work. When I create content, there's only one thing in my mind. I will never let you down. Ever. I will never write a blog post that will disappoint you. I will never create a podcast episode that won't make you think. I will never write a book where there's fluff. When I write a book, there will be an idea and an inspiration on every single page. In my book, I don't even have blurbs.
Yeah.
Because it's a waste of space. Who cares? You already bought the book. Who cares what other people think? Let's get to it. I don't have a foreword. Who cares? Just let's get to it. Let's get, I'm not going to waste your time. That's my brand. That's my promise. No fluff. Let's get to it. We're going to solve a problem for you here. And that's how I built my brand. I will not let you down. I will never let you down. And so now people trust me and they feel good about recommending my work to others. And that's what people believe. And that's what creates momentum. So it is all interconnected. Known. How do we build a personal brand? If you build a personal brand, more people are going to recommend you. Marketing rebellion. You cannot rely on advertising. People don't see it. And if they see it, they don't believe it. It's the people. The message your story has to be carried by the people. Your word today, Christelle, about this chapter made me think. This chapter had an impact on me. That's more powerful than any ad I could ever take out. And that's what people will believe. And that's what will, essentially will carry this book forward.
Mark, this has been fascinating. And I'm wondering if you'll leave our audience with a message. A word that stuck out to me in this last segment was worthiness.
Yeah.
So will you leave us and our audience with a message about worthiness?
Yeah, I love that. And I thank you for the opportunity. It's something that's been on my heart a lot lately because I don't know why, but there's been a lot of conversations on Clubhouse, on the web, about imposter syndrome, about feeling like I don't fit. I don't belong. Everything that's already been said has already been said. I did a coaching call today with this amazing woman in Switzerland. And she said, I'm afraid. She said, you've got all these people out there. Ann Handley has said this and this person has said this, and you're out there saying this. What can I do? What can I say? Now, this is a woman who has lived all over the world. She has deep experience in banking and finance. She's a brilliant writer. I said, I've never lived around the world. I don't know anything about banking. I don't even understand that language. You are unique. You have a unique heritage, experience, a voice, and the world needs that. You are worthy. Everyone is worthy. Even if you're young, even if you're just starting out. No one is like you. No one. No one has your voice. No one has your place in the world. You do have something to say, and you're never going to know. You have to be patient, and you don't try to be perfect. Put yourself out there and see what the world says about it, because you might be surprised. But you got to take that first step. Create that first initial advantage, because that's what momentum is all about.
Okay. So even though I've splattered it across the screen during the whole interview. How can people find you and buy your book and interact with you, consult with you?
Yeah, it's splattered. Look, it's really easy. Businessesgrow.com. You can find my blog, my podcast, all free. You can find my books, and there's also like lots of bonus content for each of my books. I don't ask for an email address, nothing. Yeah. I'm just putting this out into the world. There's workbooks, there's study guides, there's videos, there's extra content. I just put it out into the world for you. And you can find my social media connections. You can contact me. I'd love to stay in touch with everyone that's hearing this today.
And the people who watch the replays, let's not forget them. I mean, that's a great thing about content. This stays around, well, not for necessarily forever, but for a very long time.
Right.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for being on the show today, Mark. And this is where I get to play the outro button.
And nice meeting you, Christelle. Nice meeting you.
So nice meeting you, Mark. Thank you so much for your wisdom. And to our audience, thank you. We'll see you again next Tuesday.
This is terrifying for me.
I've made more money in the last 3 years than I did in the previous 7.
Just cliche shit, you know.